So, Philip, why Warhol chose to paint Mao at this moment?
Well, because Warhol wanted to paint the most famous person in the world, and he decided that the leader of a nation of 1 billion people had to be the most famous person in the world. At the time, it was mandatory for all Chinese party members, and I think for the general public as well, to have a copy of the Little Red Book, whose frontispiece provided the photograph that Warhol used for his silkscreen portrait of Mao. Warhol was always interested in the idea of celebrity and fame, however someone achieved it, whether it was for Marilyn Monroe achieving it for her sex appeal and her roles in Hollywood, or Jackie Kennedy as a glamorous first lady, or even a criminal such as the Men in the Most Wanted Men series, who, even though they were murderers were still celebrated, or at least became notorious in the pages of tabloid newspapers. So someone like Mao, no matter how you looked at him, had achieved a kind of unparalleled celebrity in modern times. And Warhol also knew that, in the wake of Nixon's visit to China, relations between the United States and China would improve. And so it was perfect political timing in a sense. He knew that, with Mao was no longer sort of a public enemy in the way that Fidel Castro still was in 1972. Mao was now sort of slowly being brought into the American orbit. And I would say that, that he knew obviously that there was a certain appetite for revolutionary chic among wealthy collectors, especially in Western Europe at the time. So that
China is today the most powerful nation perhaps in the world.
Well, China, I think, has revisioned, kind of, how would you say, it's provided a, excuse me, let me start again. It's yes. If you can edit that part out.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
would you say that Warhol was a kind of visionary, because today China is one of the most powerful countries in the world?
Well, certainly. I mean, I don't know that he wouldn't necessarily have predicted that China would become what it is today. It's clear that, China would have fascinated Warhol for the same reason that it fascinates a lot of American multinationals, which is because it has an enormous market. The idea of selling, sneakers to 1.3 billion people is really exciting if you're an executive at Nike. And Warhol, who believed in these kinds of, egalitarian products like Coca-Cola or Campbell's soup cans, and who, in his own art, kind of mainstreamed the idea of leveling the differences between one canvas and the next, would have thought that was fantastic. I also think that, China, in a lot of ways, was, for Warhol, was still rather exotic. He didn't really understand what was going over there. But that didn't mean that he couldn't take Mao's portrait. If anything, it made it more interesting to him, because Warhol was fundamentally interested in the surface. And the surface of Mao Zedong as the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party and the leader of a supposedly purer form of communist politics was actually, all that he really knew about it. It was all that he really had to say about China. So I think you could say that Warhol had a, incredible intuition. I mean, he was a great businessman. He knew when a product was about to get hot or become popular, but he also really had a sense for what was what was the image that would shock people or traumatize people or make people excited. The idea of taking photographs that you find in a newspaper that already exists in the world changes the role of the artist so much. Instead of the artist's task being to find the right line and the combination through, a combination of draftsmanship or of sheer technical ability and imaginative power, the artist now becomes almost like a designer or a magazine editor, choosing among different proofs or different what do you call them? Almost like a movie director choosing among rushes to find the most convincing version of the same scene that was taken over and over again. Warhol was someone who would look at many different pictures and then find the one that, for one way or another, best encapsulated the essence of a personality, or really of the public image of a certain personality.